The race very much on to replace Lindsey Graham in South Carolina since the senator passed away over the weekend. What happens is the governor will appoint a temporary replacement, and there will also be a primary in a few weeks to get a nominee who will run for the seat in November. Lindsey Graham was up for re-election there. It is possible the person that the governor appoints also runs in that primary. That's one of the things we'll discuss here. With us now, CNN chief data analyst Harry Enten. We have a picture of Nancy Mace up here, the I guess retiring congresswoman from South Carolina. She is one of the people said to be considering entering the race. What are the prediction markets saying about the chances?
Yeah,
right now?
I would say Nancy Mace is probably the biggest name, at least to a national audience, considering running in this special primary. And you know what? At this point, I don't see the math there for Nancy Mace. Look, early returns are saying the math isn't there. A chance to win the South Carolina special GOP primary, this prediction market odds, Kalshi. You could see it right here. The lieutenant governor at a 40% chance in the early stakes. And of course, this is still early. Then you got Ralph Norman, who's of course the congressman, 32%. Russell Fry, 17%. You got Lynch there at 7%. And Nancy Mace all the way down here at 4%. So despite being well known nationally, at this point anyway, the people who are putting their money where their mouths are don't give Nancy Mace much of a chance to win that nomination.
I think people who watch cable news might be surprised by this. They see Nancy Mace on Talking Lot or on the Sunday shows on the networks. So she did run for governor, right?
Yeah, okay. So why is Nancy Mace's chances so low? Why is it only at 4% chance at this point? Is because we've just done this. We've just put Nancy Mace in front of a Republican primary electorate in the great state of South Carolina. And how'd she do? She did quite poorly. That's how she did. And in fact, she faded at the end of that campaign. Take a look here, 2026. This was a gubernatorial primary, Nancy Mace. Statewide, she just got 12% of the vote. She came in fifth place for the primary. And even in her home county of Charleston, what'd she get? She got 15%. She only came in third place in her home county. That is why Nancy Mace's chances are so low, is because we just did this back in June. It put Nancy Mace in front of a Republican primary electorate. And you know what she did? She did bad. That's what she did. She did poorly. So no wonder that the prediction markets at this point have the lieutenant governor out in front, in large part because she came in second in that primary, a primary that Nancy Mace came in, again, fifth.
All right, and when we're talking about the odds here, we're looking at the chances in the primary, right?
Correct.
What has historically been a good way to win an election to fill a seat?
You know what? If you're talking, Johnny was explaining the sort of the rules of the game at the beginning of this segment, right? You're going to have somebody who is appointed to that seat, and then you will get potentially run in the primary. That's the way you win the nomination. If, in fact, you are appointed to the seat, take a look at this. Appointed senators in the next election since 1980 won their party's nomination. If they ran 26 of 28 times. So let's just say that lieutenant governor gets that appointment, which at this point she is probably the most likely choice. She would very much be in the catbird seat in order to win the nomination and then go on be the senator. The last Democrat to win a Senate race in South Carolina, I believe, was Fritz Hollings back in 1998. So Republicans have a pretty good track record in South Carolina.
Sort of two races going on. The first one is to get the governor's appointment, and the second one might be the primary.
Correct. Get the appointment, then you win the nomination if you decide to run.
And then, of course, there's an election in November, but Democrats don't usually win there.
Not since 1998. No.
Harry Enten, thank you very much.
Thank you, my friend.
The death of Senator Lindsey Graham setting up a scramble inside the Senate, the Republican Party, even at the White House. The senator's death comes at a crucial moment. In just 2 days, confirmation hearings begin for the president's pick to lead the Justice Department. They want to make acting Attorney General Todd Blanche full-time confirmed Attorney General. Graham was also up for re-election with less than 4 months to go until November. Republicans will now have to hold a special primary to determine who will go on the ballot instead of Graham. The governor there also needs to pick a temporary replacement, so all kinds of decisions need to be made. Let's get right to CNN's Andy Greer following all of this from Capitol Hill. What's the latest from up there this morning? I know it's going to be a hard morning for a lot of these senators, their first day back without Lindsey Graham.
It is the first day back, and senators are in mourning as Lindsey Graham was a power player in the Senate. I mean, just to show you, he came back from Ukraine on Saturday and immediately got on the phone with President Trump to not only talk about his trip, but to talk about the president's key piece of legislation that he's trying to pass to overhaul the U.S. election systems called the Save America Act. That bill has been at a standstill in Congress, essentially halted all other business of Congress as Republicans try and chart a way forward because it doesn't hit, they don't have the votes for that 60 vote threshold. So Graham, who is chair of the Budget Committee, has been working behind the scenes with the White House, with President Trump, to try and pass pieces of this legislation through a process called budget reconciliation. This is something that would allow Republicans to pass this bill at a lower threshold. It's a process they've used for other key parts of Trump's agenda in the past, and Republicans are really going to rely on Graham to get that legislation through. So it's a question of how that vacuum is going to be filled in Graham's absence. Graham was also a major defense hawk. He was a big supporter of Congress providing the administration with more funding for the war with Iran. Congress is currently sitting on a request from the White House for over $60 billion to provide funding for the war with Iran. And that was facing an uphill battle, and Graham was going to be a key voice in trying to help deliver that. And as I mentioned in his recent trip from Ukraine, Graham was a big supporter of being an ally to Ukraine, which is really a position that's been waning in Trump's version of the Republican Party. And Graham now being absent sets off a scramble for who is going to replace him. He was up for re-election, and now South Carolina has a very short timeline. There's a scramble in South Carolina to try and fill his seat. And now the majority in the Senate for Republicans is also getting even narrower. As you mentioned, the Republican governor of South Carolina will temporarily fill Graham's seat until the election, but now Republicans have an even narrower majority, especially with Senator Mitch McConnell, who is in a long-term hospitalization stay. We don't know when he is coming back. So right now, Republicans are down 2 votes in the Senate out of their 53 majority. And just this week, to spotlight something that Graham would have been a key part of, is the Senate confirmation process beginning for Todd Blanche to be Trump's next attorney general. Graham will not, of course, be able to be there for that. So another huge hole being missed by Graham's shocking and surprising passing.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention the personal void I know that many of these senators will feel today. Andy Guerrero on Capitol Hill, thank you very much. I want to get to CNN Washington Bureau Chief and Political Director David Chalian, who is with us now. And I know everyone in the Senate has very personal feelings about the loss of Senator Graham, but there's a very practical impact they're feeling right now, David.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, you mentioned that Russia sanctions bill. This is something, you know, John, Senator Graham was pushing for quite some time, not able to get the traction he was hoping for on it. And then it just announced on Friday that he had the White House on board with it. I think one of his Republican colleagues in the House, Mike McCall, suggested renaming the bill in memory of Senator Graham now. So we'll see how something like that on the world stage, where Senator Graham spent so much of his public time as a more traditional sort of interventionist, you would imagine, in the Republican side, not really part of that America First vision of foreign policy that perhaps Donald Trump has displayed at times, or J.D. Vance and others in the MAGA movement. But this was like a real pet project of his. And then you noted the confirmation hearing. You'll feel that this week.
Oh yeah.
Who has been a bigger defender of of Donald Trump's nominees at the moments that counted most than Lindsey Graham during this Trump era? He used that microphone while in these very high-profile hearings to really be a soldier for the president and those people he's trying to get over the finish line of confirmation. So his voice will no doubt be missed in terms of Todd Blanche's effort to sail through the Senate here.
Lindsey Graham was 71, which in Senate terms is young. But when you couple that with the illness that Mitch McConnell has been dealing with and everything else, it really does seem as if the age issue could very well have different political impacts than we've seen in a long time.
And we're seeing it in both parties, right? I mean, you're seeing it play out in different ways. We just saw, before Graham Plattner imploded as a candidate, he dispatched with the popular incumbent governor largely over an age issue. We obviously saw it with Joe Biden in 2024. To your point right now, though, when the age impacts the current working members, that can lead to absences. So obviously the sudden death of Lindsey Graham, as you noted, Mitch McConnell is still in rehabilitation and not coming to the Senate to vote this week. It impacts numbers in narrow majorities for the leaders of these parties to navigate some of these absences. But there's no doubt that the public is hungry for a new generation of leadership. They tell it in polls, and they tell it in how they're casting their ballots of late.
It is something to watch as the summer and the fall we move into that political season. David Chalian, great to see you this morning. Thank you very much.